Hello, everybody. How's it going? Welcome in. I am so excited to have you here with me tonight, as I am every time I come live. This is one of my favorite things that I do, like in the scope of things I do. And it's because like I get to come out here and like share a rant with you that I think comes across like I know things. And that's what expertise is, isn't it? Ranting about the things that you're passionate about and have some education on, and then having people say, like, I heard that. That impacted me. So funny story. I was on a call yesterday. I'm in a fractional executives group that is like a really, really great, welcoming group of people. And one of the people on the call mentioned that he had watched one of my lives last week. And my brain immediately went to, and he like was announcing it in the room, and he was like, "Oh, I just want to say something about your lives last week." And the like I'm in trouble child in me, not because I felt like he was being parental. He hadn't even said anything, but there's this feeling when it feels like somebody's about to give you feedback on something that just like comes at you as, oh, he's going to say I'm doing it wrong. He didn't. I wasn't doing it wrong. He actually complimented me on how these lives go and how it sounds like I'm very prepared for them and I know what I'm talking about. And I mean, it was like very complimentary. And I was relieved. And then I thought, like, how silly of me to immediately jump to he's going to be critical of me. And I think that we high achievers tend to feel like we're going to get in trouble. And interestingly, or coincidentally, or also the latest podcast episode from my podcast. If you don't know, I have a podcast with a partner, John Spears, who's also an executive coach. And our podcast is called I Could Talk to You All Day, a podcast for leaders who are also human. It's a long title, but it works for us. But our most recent episode of the podcast is about asking for / receiving feedback. And it was like exactly what we were talking about when we recorded the episode a couple of weeks ago is what happened inside of my body when my colleague said, I watched one of your lives last week. And like somehow I felt like suddenly he was an authority on me and I was going to get in trouble and I was going to be critiqued. And so anyway, you never outgrow it, but you recover from it more quickly. And we have the tools, right? Like in my former life, first of all, I never would have been going live and talking about all of this stuff very publicly, but also like my realization that I was having that like visceral reaction of feeling like, uh-oh, I'm in trouble. I recognized it right away. And old me would have not heard that he was actually complimenting me because I would have been stuck on what did he really think? What did he really want me to know that he had watched the live that I had done? And what could I have done better? And should I ask him which one he watched so I can go back and self-critique it? And no. But there was a lot of work that went into my sort of natural reactive visceral fear response, a very quick recovery, and then being able to like not just hear, but also listen to the feedback, and that he was using me as an example in the room, which was actually like super flattering and really like lifted me, really elevated me. So I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for the work that I do and the work that I've done, both for myself and that I do with my clients that like allows for this self-exploration that doesn't always lead to, I must be doing it wrong, or he must be like just trying to be nice, or just simply dismissing that I heard anything except somebody watched my live. And people watch my lives, y'all. Like, viewership on LinkedIn's been a little bit down, but people are watching and they're DMing me and setting up conversations with me. And all of that is really meaningful because I'm doing this work because I care so much about it. And it's important to me that it is reaching people who are ready to hear it or who are not ready to hear it because it scares them, but they're hearing it anyway. And they're sticking around to hear more. So anyway, welcome and on to our topic for tonight. If you don't know me and you have just stumbled across me, hi, I'm Lauren Lefkowitz. I'm an executive coach and fractional chief HR officer. And my great passion is helping us escape this trap that we get into of saying, I'm fine, it's fine, justifying why it, whatever it is fine. That, well, the company doesn't have resources. We're doing more with less. Of course, I'm working a million hours. They're paying me a lot of money. Or of course, I'm being paid a lot of money. So I should work a million hours and it's fine. And the truth is we are not fine. There is no such feeling as fine. Like I would argue that neutral is like a little bit happy. And fine is like a little bit sad or mad or disappointed or frustrated, ranging all the way to like losing my freaking mind because I cannot take this for another minute. But if I don't say I'm fine, people will be mad, people will be disappointed. And I have to do this anyway. I'm stuck here anyway. So I may as well say it's fine, may as well be fine with it. So that being said, I am doing this live called the Forking Audacity. I am doing this live once a week, every Tuesday, to talk about the audacity of things that happen to us at work, the audacity of the things we do to ourselves in the workplace, which, like, by the way, then blends over into our personal lives, because of course it does, because as much as we try and separate work and home, we are just one complete human being. And while we may try to compartmentalize some stuff, the audacity is everywhere. And this weekly live came up because, I was thinking about the audacity of like the way that the world is right now, especially in the US. And I am audacious enough to think that we still deserve to take care of ourselves. We still deserve joy and compensation for our work and gratification for the things that we want to do, and to make an impact where we want to make an impact, and to do it in an ethical way, in a way with integrity, where we make and keep commitments to ourselves and to others, but not to others at our own expense. And so that's how this weekly started. On Wednesdays, I'm going live with Lauren Howard, who is one of my best friends. And we met on LinkedIn a few years ago. And we're talking about the toxicity. So I'm talking about the audacity on Tuesdays. We're talking about the toxicity on Wednesdays. And on other days, I'm going live to talk about things like why I got myself a coach after doing it all by myself for a bunch of time. I'm going to talk about that on Thursday. I meant to do it last week and I wasn't feeling great on Friday. And so I kind of just took the weekend off of doing lives. And so I'll be back on Thursday with why I, a high achiever who could do everything all by myself, decided to hire a coach. And I'm going to kick off that conversation tonight a little bit without talking about sort of my personal story, but talking a little bit more about some of the stories from my clients, from my friends, from coworkers, and how they went from doing everything by themselves, why they were doing everything by themselves, to seeking support, receiving support, accepting support, living in a life that where it feels natural to have support, and to not live a life where the only thing is I am outputting support and I'm not taking any in. So let's talk about that. My high achieving do-it-yourselfer friends, I'm looking at you. I'm going to start with how we start doing everything by ourselves. And it's related to feedback. It's related to independence. It's related to trust. So I'm going to start with, I'm going to do it backwards. Okay. I'm going to start with trust and then independence and then feedback. So trust. When we first start growing up, and this is like anytime I advise a group of college students, and I don't talk about this a lot, but I advise a group of college students, and I was talking to one of them today, and I had been in the room when she was having a conversation with a group of people, and then we decided to have a conversation separately, just the two of us. And I asked her what she wanted to get out of our conversation. And she said, I wanted to have a conversation with an adult. And I know I'm an adult, but like, I wanted somebody more adult than me. And so I said, I'm happy to be the adultier adult for you. And also, like, I don't think I'm really all that grown up. But we start with this life, right? Where we're doing things out of high school or in college or in trade school or whatever it is that we pursue post high school. And we start to build trust. So we start with do these things. We do these things. We take them. We do the things. We ask the questions we need to ask. We get the things right? And almost everybody's job out of school starts as a tasky job. So we start doing things right, and then we get praise. And then we do more things right, and we get more praise. We do more things right, we get more praise, et cetera, et cetera. And in all of this back and forth of doing things and getting praise, we are building trust. And sometimes it doesn't happen right away. Sometimes our first job or our first couple of jobs we're not good at, or it's not a good fit for us. Or we just don't like it. And that's okay. And that's part of the learning process. But when you start to get in your groove, you do a thing, you get praise, you do a thing, you get praise, you do a thing, you get praise. And then all of a sudden you're a trusted colleague, right? And sometimes that takes 6 months. Sometimes that takes several years. But we hit a point where we are trusted. And we think that because we are trusted, we also need to be the second thing, which is independent. So trust, and then independence, and then feedback. So trust, if we have trust covered, and then we're moving on to, well, now we're independent. We have this thought process where we've been trusted. We feel like we've already had our opportunity to ask questions. People who are building trust are now in this trust building seat, and they come to you for questions. They come to you for help and support. And the independent part of your brain says to you, self, other people are coming to me for advice and support now. And if other people are coming to me for advice and support, it means I should know things. And we think that means like at the expense of everything. So if I am the person being come to for advice, expertise, mentorship, management, mediating, solving problems, if everybody's coming to me for that, then as an independent person, I start to feel like I can't really ask questions because everybody expects me to know things. It's not a truth, but it's your truth. It was my truth. I've had that truth. It is the truth of the high achiever. It is the truth of the born helper that at some point you become a level of independence that is like the equivalent of there's nobody higher on the mountain than you are. And not that there's nobody who's like smarter or more successful or funnier, and there's almost nobody funnier than me, but that's just my opinion. But there's, that there's nobody who is going to help you because you're at a level of independence, right? There's Mel Robbins always says, like, nobody's coming. You have to do it for yourself, all of that kind of stuff. So we go from having built trust to independence. And I forget the language I was using for the third one, but I'm going to call it feedback. I think it was feedback. Feedback and fear go very much hand in hand. And I said it at the beginning of this live. If you're joining late, go back and watch the beginning and the story that I told about my own fear this week coming up because somebody was offering me actually very positive feedback. But there's fear in the feedback. We don't want anybody to come to us and say, I thought you were more skilled than this. Why do you need help with this? Why wouldn't you have the answer? Everybody comes to you for the answers. Why wouldn't you have the answer? And so the stair stepping of trust to independence to avoidance of feedback, which is really avoidance of negative feedback, then bounces us back to independence. And then we're bouncing back and forth between building trust, being independent, getting or being afraid of getting feedback that's negative or constructive, bouncing back to hyper independence, and so on and so on and so on. And then we become the 4-year-old who is learning to tie their shoes. We did it once. We did the thing, right? If you've ever seen a 4-year-old, I don't know if 4 is the exact age. Like some kids are super nimble and they do it at 3. Some kids are not that nimble. They do it at 6. Some people are just never good at tying shoes because they don't have good fine motor skills and they use Velcro or slip-ons. No judgment there. But that being said, let's say approximately a 4-year-old with, typical developmental fingers is tying their shoes for the first time. They're learning, depending on who's teaching them and what method we all learned, they're either learning the one loop and the dance around and then put through, or they're learning the bunny ears and then you flip them and tie them. And they've done it once. They have done it all by themselves one time. And whether the shoelace became untied 3 minutes later, or whether that shoelace stayed tied and they've been slipping that shoe on and off so as not to ruin the tied shoe, there is a level of trust that they've built with themselves and their adult that they are now a shoe tire. And so now they're in this independence pillar where they don't think that they should not know how to do it a second time. But it's easy to forget when we haven't done a lot of practicing. It's easy to forget how to do a thing, especially if you've only done it once and you have the mind of a 4-year-old. So the 4-year-old doesn't want to lose this level of trust. They've been given the independence to tie their own shoes. Well, the next time that they're doing it, maybe they're struggling and you, the adult say, do you want some help with that? And their brain is like, no, you've already been trusted with this. And so they say, I'm doing it by myself. In this like very obstinate, I can do it, don't tell me who I am kind of way. And they don't want help because of the independence, and they don't want feedback on it. And it's this defensive cycle, right? Because then they feel like if you do have to do it for them, even if it takes them 35 minutes to tie that shoe, which means everybody in the house has to start getting ready earlier. Even if they do it this time, if they can't do it, they feel like they're going back to the start. And we treat ourselves the same way, which feels a little bit absurd when you talk about it in that sort of simple term. But if I have been doing a task or even, part of a strategic role for some time, and I think I need help, or I think like, this isn't even really my lane. I shouldn't be doing this. Someone else should be doing this, but I've done it before. We think we are risking our independence, that middle pillar. We think we are risking our independence by asking for help, accepting help without like express direction or permission. So if you have direct reports in your workplace, This may show up in not being able to delegate well. This may show up in you sitting at your desk with your head in your hand, trying to figure out how to adjust your calendar because you simply cannot do all of the things that need to get done, and you not being willing or knowing how to ask for help or support in either doing the thing or in rearranging your schedule or in changing deadlines or in reassessing how hard you have to work. One of my very favorite questions in coaching is, what is the least amount of work that you can do and still be successful? And high achievers, including me, freaking hate that question. Don't ask me how to make it easy. I'm going to do it difficult. I'm going to do it perfect. It's going to take me a long time. I'm going to feel resentful about it. And by the time we're done with it, like, we don't want to talk to anybody about anything. We're very tired and very, very angry and very resentful about what we've been doing because we ourselves decided we had to do it independently. The feedback piece of this comes in for grownups because we think if we have let go of the tight grip on independence, that instead of us demonstrating some flexibility and some team ability and some humility and modesty and humanness, which is what asking for help actually does demonstrate when you learn how to do it in a way that feels powerful for you. We think that instead of that, we're going to look weak. And we think if we look weak, we're going to go all the way back to the beginning where we have to start building trust again from scratch. And so we get into this cycle of, I got to build the trust so I can have the independence, so I don't get the negative feedback. It's not even really getting the good feedback because you needed that for the trust building. But once the trust building is there and you're doing the independent work, all you're really trying to do is avoid the negative feedback. Not healthy, by the way. Just avoiding the negative feedback, not great. Lived it, did it myself for years. And feedback is not something to be terribly afraid of. And again, go and listen to the podcast. I could talk to you all day. We're on Spotify and all the other ones. John Spears and I run that together. And our last two episodes, one came out today, the other one came out 2 weeks ago, are about feedback. One is giving feedback and one is asking for feedback. And we talk a lot about the reluctance to asking for feedback, the resistance to receiving feedback, and actually how to go about doing it in a way that feels good for you. So I think you'll get some really good depth if you go and listen to those 2 episodes. But I am here to tell you that you will not stop doing everything by yourself until you stop doing everything by yourself. Which, tell Lauren, that's a really obvious statement. Also, though, it's not, because if it were a really obvious statement, we would stop doing everything by ourselves. I hung up this wall a week and a half ago. It's real. It's not virtual. These are acoustic panels that take all the echo out of the way. You may or may not know, I'm a bit of a perfectionist. I keep recentering the camera because it keeps getting ever so slightly off center. I can see it's ever so slightly off center now, but I'm in the middle of the decor, so that makes me happy. But this is a project that I had similar in my old house, and I unexpectedly moved. And I'll tell you about that on another live, but I unexpectedly moved about a year after I put it up. I had bought the tiles and they sat in my condo for 3 or 4 months because I didn't think I would get it perfect. And I wanted to do it by myself. And I ended up just backing out of the whole thing and hiring a handyman to do it. The handyman did it fully in alignment, all symmetrical, 2 inches off the center of the room. And I just laughed when I realized that. And it took me a while to realize that because I was sitting ever so slightly off the center. And I couldn't get myself centered. And I was centered in front of my desk and I was centered under the light, the overhead light. And I finally took out a measuring tape and realized that I was off center. And so I had to rearrange my whole office area to make sure I could be seated in the middle of the room. Well, then I unexpectedly move a year later and I decided to put up the same wall. And I decided to do it myself because my all or nothing brain was like, you hired someone to do it and they didn't do it right. You can do it yourself. Now, measuring is a two-person job unless you're hyper independent like me. And the way that I hyper independently did this was not damaging because I could do it by myself and I actually enjoyed it. Like it felt very meditative to do it. This thing goes up 6 or 7 tiles and across 8 or 9 tiles. So it was a half a day project. It was about 4 hours of project work. And I painter's tape everywhere and none of it made sense. Like in my brain, I was gonna, make sure that it that each piece of tape had meaning. And by the time I got back to the first set of tape, I have no idea what the tape was. But I got to use a laser level and that was very cool. My point is, this was something I could safely and effectively do by myself. And, but I laughed because while I was measuring the wall initially, I'm using a tape measure and I've got like one of those really solid tape measures that doesn't get bendy. But any tape measure, if you pull it out far enough, is going to like do that thing where it twists and turns down and falls over. And so with some painter's tape, I taped the tape measure up to the wall at the pull out end. And then I stretched it across the room. And I was so proud of myself for figuring out this independent measure. I also, by myself, hung up like a 5 foot by 4 foot painting over my fireplace because I have a fireplace in this new place. That took a little over an hour. I almost fell off of the stepladder more than once. And I was like contorting myself to be able to see the wire and the picture and the center and the leveling and the center. And it was honestly, that was not something I should have done by myself. And so even when you're in practice, not staying in that middle pillar of hyper independence is hard. I have a friend who was going to come visit this week and unfortunately is under the weather. So she's going to come in a couple of weeks. And I'm leaving the rest of the heavy hanging for us to do together because I have learned lessons, because I have done this practice of learning how to not always be so hyper independent. I also now ask for feedback. I ask my clients for feedback. What are you getting out of this? What's working? What's not working? What do you want more or less of? And I also offer feedback in a really compassionate, empathetic way, because the muscle building isn't just about receiving, it's also about sharing. And part of building your community and of not doing everything by yourself and of learning what to delegate is having people in your life who are willing to be with you in that, who are willing to have things delegated, who are willing to ask you what you need, and who are willing to tell you what you need. Lauren, why are you doing this all by yourself? You know you don't have to do this all by yourself. Or, hey, I know we had a conversation the other day and you sounded like you were struggling with some things. I'm just checking in on you. Responding to those things, that's part of chipping away at your hyper independence. And then also deciding, where does your trust go, right? So when we become hyper independent and we start doing everything by ourselves, we're doing it because we feel trusted. And then we're doing it because we feel like we're going to get negative feedback if we aren't doing it anymore, right? Back to that cycle of building trust, being independent, avoiding negative feedback. If negative feedback comes, going back to building trust. And it's not quite that simple, but that's a really simple cycle to recognize in ourselves. And being willing and able to ask for support from constructive people. I talk about constructive people a lot. And I'll get in detail on that in a moment, in a moment. But building relationships with constructive people, building the confidence to delegate out, building the confidence to say, that's not my job, without emotion, without defensiveness, not always with knowing who to refer somebody to, right? If you do, great. Hey, I think Joey does that. You can ask him. Or getting to that level where you're so confident that you say, that's unfortunately, that's not something in my scope of work. I'm not sure who does it. I'm not able to help you with that. Notice I use the word unfortunately, which can be seen as an apology if you overuse it. But I didn't say, I'm sorry, I can't help you. And no is its own whole live. So come at me later this month. I'll be doing a live on no. But there's this this sort of practice of figuring out what is bogging us down, what is burning us out. Where are we boundaryless? Where are we not taking care of ourselves? And in what ways is that because we are being so hyper independent? We are being so protective of our workload because we don't want anyone to think we're lazy or dismissive or incapable that we can't breathe. In my workaholic days, and again, I'm going to talk about that more on Thursday when I go live to talk about my own path to getting a coach and my history of doing everything by myself. We start building towards trusting that we're allowed to ask for help. We start building towards trusting that the world is not on our shoulders when we let other people in. When we are doing everything by ourselves all of the time, it's exhausting. It is an absolute recipe for burnout. It teaches us and those around us that we have to be there to do the things, because if we're not there to do the things, it won't get done. They won't get done. And so there's like a little bit of like a superhero martyr shaming process, right? Like, I'm the only one who can do this, but not in like a proud of myself kind of way, in a like, what corner have I backed myself into kind of way. And when you get into the practice of asking for help, and there are so many really simple ways to do that. Go to a grocery store if you're a not super tall person like I am, and ask somebody to get something off a top shelf for you. Go to a grocery store if you're a super tall person and ask a person of shorter stature to get something off the bottom shelf that you can't reach. Go to, I don't know, go to any place and ask for something real small. And if you need an idea for yourself of how to ask for something small, to just start chipping away ever so slightly at your own hyper independence, your own feeling of having to do everything by yourself, send me a DM wherever you are. I'm not sure where you might be seeing me, but I get DMs on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. I don't on YouTube. If you're seeing this on YouTube, come to one of those platforms and DM me. And tell me what you want to get independent on, and I'll give you a starting point. Easy peasy. Your first step to chipping away at your own hyper independence might be just asking me a question. Easy. Your second step is thinking about what more you can do to include other people in your life. And I will tell you this, the more clients I work with who come to me in this very hyper independent state, in this high achiever state, come for this cycle of trust, independence, avoidance of feedback. And they also come because they're tired of it. They don't want it anymore. And these incredibly successful, really sharp, really clever people who can help everybody else with their stuff cannot figure out how to do it themselves. And the big secret is because we're not supposed to do everything by ourselves. I am so much less clever about me than my coach is about me. My coach will ask me questions and I will like rage on the inside that she saw me so clearly. And sometimes I will still fight with what she asks me or what she sees or what she reflects to me because I'm resistant, because we are resistant to changing ourselves. But that is also like what I am here for. That's what I do. I help you chip away at that. I help you start to trust that you can have another person, even if for the time being, it's only me. It's a practice to get out of being only me because you don't want to rely on only one person for everything for the rest of your life. But it's the start. And I think something that happens to us as high achievers is we think that in order to do whatever, fill in your own blank. I'll use the example of hiring a coach. In order to hire a coach, I have to figure out what's wrong. I have to figure out what I need. I have to figure out what I want. And then I have to come to the coach and the coach can help me organize that. Heck no. You get to come to me and have a free, no pressure strategy call with me to say, I don't know what I want, but it's not this. And I will just start asking you questions. All you have to know is that the way things are going in your corporate leadership career are not the way you want them to be, or the way things are going in the way you've been searching for your next career move, not how you want it to be going. That's all you have to know. When I hired my own coach, I had a lot of lists of things I didn't want. No idea what I wanted. When my clients come to me, they often think they're at the top of the salary level they can get to. They're at the top of their career. They're at the top of their game. This is the best it's ever going to get. And it sucks. And they're coming and telling me it sucks and I don't know what to do because I don't think there's anything I can do. That is the place to start, is to let somebody in with you to be your partner, to say, I don't know what I want, but it's not this. That's it. That's the starting point. And I had a strategy call with someone today. I call discovery calls strategy call because discovery sounds to me like we're going to explore ancient lands and find buried cities and things like that. And I'm strategic, and so are most of my clients. So I call it a strategy call. We get on the call. We talk about what's happening. I had a call today, talk to the person about what I thought would work for them. And she didn't know if she wanted to do the work with me or not. And that's okay. And so we set up another call where she's going to make a decision. But I'm never, ever going to be the person who gets on a call with you and says, like, you got to decide now, effective tomorrow, I won't be taking any more clients. I have as much flex as I want. And if you want to work with me at this point in my career, I probably have room for you in my coaching practice. And I get like so much joy out of working with people who don't know how to not do everything by themselves. And we will learn it together for you and figure out for you what is the best way for you to learn this. What is the best practice for you to start chipping away? Sometimes it's a simple question like, hey, can you help me get that from a shelf? Sometimes it's asking a friend to come over and sit with you while you do something. Sometimes it's asking for something very big, asking for more money, or telling your boss, I'm going to be setting some limits. It's never those really big, hard, scary things up front, because first you have to figure out what you even want. And if you're used to being independent and you're used to being sort of out of ideas on what to do for yourself and how things can be for yourself, it's hard to come to somebody and tell them you don't know. But I want you to know I'm a person you can come to and say, I don't know. I just know it's not this. I'm going to leave you with that tonight. I will be on live tomorrow night with Lauren Howard. talking about the toxicity of all the things, busyness and bosses and boundaries and burnout and other B words I won't say on here because I like to keep it clean when I'm on video, not necessarily in real life conversations, but I like to keep it profesh here. Thank you so much for being with me. If you're watching the replay, feel free to send me a DM, leave a comment. And I'll see you tomorrow for Live with Lauren Howard, and Thursday for a live to talk about how I got to the point of deciding as a hyper independent person that I was ready for a coach. Have a great night. Thanks so much.